Leave a comment below. Oh no. The delay should be minimal normally. I don't know how much it's gonna be. I think it's around 5 to 10 seconds max, so kind of keep that in mind. I'm gonna mute myself here now, else you hear me double. So yeah. Okay, so everyone is able to hear me now still via the stream, I'm hoping. Just let me know, 1 or 2 people, that they're hearing me. 1 to 2 seconds, that's great. That's quicker than last time. Okay. So, let's start with this screen when you first open a Blender. If you've opened a Blender before, it's going to look like this. But if it's your very first time, you're going to have some extra options down here. Ignore those for now, because I'll explain how to change them at will, and not just at your first startup. But we're going to go over some settings that you kind of need to have the same as me, because that's just going to be a bit handier. So, this is the main viewport. I'm going to add, I have a plugin, an add-on that shows what keys I'm pressing, so you can just kind of see it in the bottom right. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to go to our preferences and just check the settings there, that we're all running the same thing. So you can go to the top left, edit, preferences, it's the last thing, and then under which one is it always? Key map. Alright, under key map for Blender preferences. It's going to open in a separate window, but you can also do it differently. Again, I'll show that. So you want to have left click selection, not right click. Blender used to be right click selection. There was a good reason for it. Not anymore. I mean, you can still do it, but I switched to left click select and it's much better. Oh, you quickly checking the chat. It's still good, right? Or alright. So there are 2 main things you want to check out. It's your selection mode, so left click, right? And then what does spacebar do? You have 3 options: play, tools, or search. You can do all of these things still, even if you select a different ones. If I put it on search, I can still do play with a different shortcut. For some reason, and this has been on the bug tracker for ages, if you put your spacebar action to search, you will not see shortcuts on tools, which is really weird. So it has to be on play or tools. I keep it on play because I do animation as well, so having that on spacebar, super easy. If you have it on tools, that's also fine. I kind of recommend having it on play, because you can do the tools action by doing shift spacebar, which I'll show. So that's kind of the thing. So when everyone has that set up, left click to select, and spacebar action should be mapped to play. Also be sure you're in the Blender key map, because all of this is obviously for Blender's own key map and not for the industry compatible one, just for consistency's sake. It's a default, so we're going to be using that. It's a really specific bug. Yes, I know it is, and it's been, someone has called it intentional, which I find stupid, but whatever. Alright, so we're going to just close that out. The first 2 things I'm going to show, it's not really navigation, but it is important to know, is T and N are for these 2 side panels. T is for your toolbar, so T, toolbar. Blender has a lot of shortcuts that, like, the first letter of the name is also the shortcut. So toolbar is T, grab is G, rotate is R. It kind of makes sense for beginners, but it's maybe a bit messy. You'll like it, hopefully. So toolbar is your left thing, it has tools, right? N is the properties window, which is not that very obvious. In your properties window you can find the transform of your object, your current tool. For this case I have a selection tool currently, or a move tool, right? I can just select different ones. There are also, if you hold down certain tools, you can get different variations. Only on tools that have this like little arrow in the bottom right. N, properties. Yes, exactly. Personally, and this is just my preference because I come from Blender, I always have it on the top one. Select box. Or a different one if you like, select circle, lasso, whatever. Because then I can just do left click and I can select stuff like this, move them around, right? I'll go around over all of this, just going through the basics first, right? So that's just the two main panels you have. I'm going to close them for now. You can also, if you forget the shortcut, click and drag on the arrow that you get, like that, right? So if you just go to your left side of your screen, which works a bit finicky for me because I have two monitors, you can just drag them out, but I think T and N are probably easier. So like this, right? You can just do that. You can resize it as well, like this, which is not that useful. But it remembers that as well, so it's kind of nice. Especially if you're sculpting or something with a toolbar, it's sometimes handier to have them like this, right? Because there's a lot of tools. I'll get over this. Yeah, you can. I'll just click it as well. Oh yeah, that's nice. All right. I never do that, so I don't know. I just use T and N. But if you like it that way, you know, there you go. So then, let's first see how we can navigate, right? Let me get my, right. So how do you navigate? For orbiting around stuff, it just hold your middle mouse button and drag. You can drag infinitely, by the way, so I just keep dragging upwards and you can spin around, it's fun. So just click and drag basically with the middle mouse button, that's orbiting. If you hold shift and then middle mouse click and drag, you'll pan left to right. Okay. Scroll wheel is zooming or dollying, and then control does the same, but it's a smooth dolly. Control and middle click, like this. So shift and middle mouse button is panning, just middle mouse button is orbiting, and you can kind of combine the two. And then control and middle mouse dragging is just dollying. Again, you can use either one. I like scrolling more, but you can use control and drag as well. So that's how you kind of navigate the viewport itself, right? So left click is selecting objects. The selected object will be orange. Like that, alright. If you want to select more than one, it's just like in your folder structure, right, on Windows. Shift for multiple objects, or control, I think. Wait, no, not control, just shift. You can also, if you have your box select on, right, you can do this. Left click in an empty spot to just deselect. So that's just what you can do. Middle mouse for zooming, right, panning, and dollying, right. So that's how you can kind of move around. Yeah, so if you drag around out this more, you get the names, which can be handy for, like, you know, finding something. Can you deselect specific parts of your selection? Yes, so there's a few ways. You can either hold control while box selecting. So now I just have box select on, right? I select everything, I hold control and box select something away, or yeah, that's it basically, how you do it. With box selection, control and box selecting it away. There's normally also a way where you can just, yeah, you have to double click an item while holding shift. That also works. Like that. So if I select everything and I do a double click on my cube while holding shift, I'll deselect it. Like that. Another thing, maybe if you want to select everything, there's a shortcut for it. A. All. Right? And then to deselect, there are two options. Either you double tap A, which is what it used to be, or you press Alt A. Alt in Blender is a modifier key basically, and it usually means the inverse of whatever the normal key does. So for example, A selects everything, and Alt A deselects everything. So you can do A, Alt A. It's handy when, you know, you have a few objects selected, maybe these two, but you just want no selections, so you do Alt A, right? So just do that. So again, I have my tool on box select usually, but you can also have it on tweak, which I dislike. Personally, I just like box select, but it's, you know, your preference. I don't think it stores this from session to session, I'm not sure. I think it does, but A once, yeah, so in the old, in 2.79, it was just A to select, and to select all, and A to deselect all. They changed that, I dislike it at first, but A and Alt A makes more sense because it's more consistent with everything else. So one other thing, I'm going to go over a lot of stuff here first. It's a lot of stuff to take in. If you have something selected and you press H, that's hide, you'll hide that object. If you press Alt and H, you'll unhide it. So Alt is like a modifier key, right? So A selects everything, Alt A deselects everything, H hides stuff, Alt H unhides. And you can do this with, box selection as well. H, Alt H, stuff like that. So that's the main viewport, right? That's what we're going to be mainly doing. So now we're going to touch on some of the buttons you can use to move stuff around. So there's two ways. There's the max way, which is a gizmo that's always there, which is maybe preferred, or you use the shortcuts that Blender has. I'm going to do the shortcut way first because it is superior. I like it a lot more. If you don't, that's fine. You can use the tools as well, of course. Is there a way to partially unhide? I will go over that. There is. It's not a shortcut, it's a properties outliner thing, but there is. So you can unhide or hide certain items. There is a way, but I'm not going to touch on it yet. That's like, or that as well, specific faces. You can all do this in edit mode as well, but we're doing the object level stuff in the viewport first. Then I'm going to go and talk over all these other panels. Because what's this here and this, we'll get there. Now we're just going to do this first. So the three main keys in Blender. Wait, I'm going to first see if there's more questions. A lot smoother and boots up way faster. Yeah, so if you haven't noticed yet, Blender is like 80 megabytes to download, I think. 80, maybe 90, I'm not sure. And it boots up insanely fast. I have to log into Steam every time I use it. And even then it's faster than max. So yeah, let's get back now to the interaction, the main keys we use, unless there are some questions. I'll wait for that. Or are we all good? Yeah? Okay, great. No, not someone's typing now. Yeah, exactly. So that's the kind of nice thing about it. You can just bring it along. I know friends who are freelancers who just bring it on a USB stick to wherever they work, and they get a computer assigned to them, and they just plug in Blender and run it from the USB stick, so they don't have to install anything, and it helps them massively for like little stuff or bigger stuff. Yeah, it's neat. It's really cool. So if you look at your cheat sheet, right, we have three main. Actually, I should maybe have it open as well. Kind of smart. Because I've been going off my notes, but I should probably have the PDF open. Ooh, I'm gonna drag it on the left. Let's see. Oh yeah, I'm not gonna go over how to delete stuff yet, but I will in a second. Let's first do move, scale, and rotate, right? So G is grab, not move, but whatever is easiest to remember, right? Scale is S and rotate is R, right? So let's try that, right? So if I click on an object, I have it selected, it's orange. I press G, I'm now in move mode. If I move my cursor, it's going to start moving. If I make a movement I don't like, right click, and it'll cancel it. So you can do all this stuff, where the fuck is my cube? Right click, oh, it's back where it was. So you can kind of cancel anything with right click, I think. Even certain modeling operations, I'm not sure. But it's like most things, you can just kind of, or ESC, yeah. You even see it, right? Here at the bottom, there is a small header, sort of like or a footer, I guess, with certain buttons, and it tells you what it can do. So here, for example, middle mouse button, it's very small on the stream, but hopefully you can see it on your screen. Middle mouse is rotate view, for example. Left is select. Left and drag is box select. Right is object context menu. I'll go over that, but so it has these buttons here and they're contextual, right? So here they're saying select and box select. If I go down here, it changes, right? Because now I'm in a different window here as well, and here as well. So it changes depending on what window you're in. So again, G, I can just move it, and right click, it'll cancel it. So I'm going to press G again, and if you look at the bottom, there's all... Oh, I can't move my cursor over there, right? I can't move my cursor there because it has infinite looping. But if you check, it has left click is confirm, right click is cancel. There's X, Y, and Z for snapping to an axis. I'll show that in 1 second. And there's also shift versions of those three. There's control. There's just a lot of stuff, right? So it has the basic keys there. So if I'm moving this and I want to snap it to a Y axis, I press Y. Now I'm moving along the Y axis. Also, when I'm doing that, at the top left, it'll tell me how far I'm moving. You can input exact numbers as well, but I'm not going to do it yet. Just going to go over this as well. So first, G and X. I'm going to go over the X axis. G and Z, up and down. Now let's say I want to move in the XY plane. I can do G and Shift Z, and I'll move in the XY plane. Yeah, you have to get used to it, but it's very powerful to just be like G, X, and you're good to go. Because you don't have to drag your mouse to a gizmo. I'll show it with the gizmos, like in Max. But it's way slower than this way. So I can do G and Z to move in a specific axis, and then I can do G and Shift X, for example, to move in the two other axes, basically. So shift is like not on that axis. Another thing, if I press G and hold shift, I can move slower. So to compare, right, this is me not holding shift, now I am. Right, so it's kind of for accurate movement. I don't use it often, but yeah. Well, one more thing you can do is you can press X, for example, and you see this D and then -12 meters, for example, right? Oh, what did you press wrong? Control Z if you do something wrong. Oh, okay. You're in wireframe mode. I'll quickly go over that then. So if you press Z, you'll get this pie menu. That's the rendering mode, right? You're probably on wireframe, right? So just Z, solid. We're in solid view right now. But I'll get back to what those things are. So stay in solid for now. We're going to go over those other things. We're not going to be touching on rendering right now, today, but we'll get to it, right? So I can do G, X, and I see how much I'm moving it on that axis, right? So I can input 4 on my numpad, and it'll move by 4 meters. And now I move my mouse, nothing is happening, right? I can control Z this, of course, so I can do G, Y. I can do -6 on a numpad, and it'll move -6 meters. Not just numpad, really? I don't like that. I don't like that it also works with your top row, but okay. I dislike it, but it works as well with your top row of keys. Well, then you're a weak waffle. No. So it works with both, not just your numpad, but I prefer numpad because I have access to decimals there as well, and negative numbers. So, I could recommend using it on your numpad. Make sure numlock is on, else it doesn't work, obviously. But that's that, right? That's moving, G. And then, well, the rest is actually the same. So R is rotate, and by default it'll look like this. You have this gizmo, and you can just rotate it however you want. So again, it's the same like on grab. X is for rotating around the X axis. R and Y is around the Y. R and Z is around the Z axis, right? So it works the exact same. Shift does the exact same thing as well. R and Shift Z will rotate around the other two axes. I think. R, Shift Z. Hold on. I think it's not. That's interesting. It should normally. That's weird. Well, what about snapping it back to the middle? So for any of these three, grab, rotate, and scale, you just press right click this. Oh, you want to snap as in your view back to the middle. You mean that? Numpad 0 is for your camera. So yeah, if you have one. So don't do that. If you want to snap back to So the hard way is just dragging your mouse back to wherever you want to be, which is what I always do. But you can normally, what is it again? Oh yeah, control, and then on your numpad, comma, period, control period, will zoom to whatever you have selected. Alt G, does that work as well? Alt G does not work. Yeah, no, it's so if you just select something.
I just want to mention one thing.
Yeah, sir.
Yes, so all the inputs you put in your numpad, it's all relative to whatever object you're holding. So it's not relative to the world origin. It's just wherever the object is positioned, it will move whatever value you input from that object's position.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. So the D stands for delta. So it's a relative movement. It's relative to whatever you are currently. So if you have your object rotated a bit and then go rotate X 5, it's in degrees, it'll move it 5 degrees more on the x-axis. You can also, by the way, use the properties window. I go to item, I can select this thing, I can click and drag here in the X to move it this way, same here, and same for this. So you just click and drag like that. You can do that as well, and you can just click on it, press 0, tab to go to a next section, 0, tab, 0, tab. Also, I'm seeing that the add-on doesn't actually register that. That's great. Just we switch to everyone muting the stream and talking over Discord instead. Talking over myself is very confusing. Well, the delay is minimal, so I guess we can do that. Yeah, the delay is minimal, so I would say mute the stream, actually, if you guys want to do that. Or mute Waffle. Oh yeah, I can just mute you, yeah. Wait, no. Oh yeah, I can mute you here. That works. Yeah, alright, that's way better. That's smart. No, I can just mute Waffle. Oh. No, I think I just mute him here on Discord, and then you don't hear him in the stream, you just hear him on Discord. Oh wait, yeah, that's a good point. Alright. I think you should mute him then. You'll hear yourself still. Oh yeah, that's true. I'm just gonna repeat what he says. Maybe that's better. No, because I'm not gonna hear him then. Fuck. Ah. Okay, yeah, this is an issue. But I think... Let's see. We'll figure this out in the break. Yeah, alright, that's a good idea. Where were we? Alright, so... Yeah, G is just moving, R is rotating, S is scaling. X, Y, and Z are for specifying an axis. Right? And then Shift is a modifier key that kind of inverts it. So Y is rotate around the Y axis, Shift Y is rotate around the other two. Basically like that. He can deafen himself. Okay, let's just continue for now, and you should just shut up, Waffle. No, you can put it in text maybe though. Like I think that's a good band-aid for now. So again, with scaling, the same thing. I can press S, X, and I'll scale on the X-axis. S, Y, like that. S, Shift, Z will scale on the other two, right? It's that kind of thing. So G, R, and S. That's all really for that. Let's see what I missed. Okay, I need to do the UI and then some other stuff. We're almost done. So, first thing I'll do is let's go over these side panels here, right? What they are. The top one is called the outliner. It's kind of like your object manager in Max or whatever it's called, right? So here you can just see every object you have. You can select objects in here and they will be selected here and vice versa. So if I click on the lamp, it's also selected here. Same for the camera as well. So someone asked earlier, how can I hide things like selectively? I'll select everything, right? As an example, hide. So now this eye icon here is gone, right? It's closed. So now I can just click on this to hide certain things. Don't hide the collection, that's a group. I'll go over what collections are in a second, but first this, right? So you can hide stuff here. There's some extra functionality that I will not go over for now. It's to do with rendering, and it's kind of more advanced. So you can, there's extra settings here, in here. So restriction toggles, visibility, or does it show up in the render, is it clickable, all these kinds of things. So for now, leave it as is. And you may want to make it a bit bigger because this icon is hidden by default, like that, kind of sucks. So like this, right? We'll talk about collections real quick, because collections are kind of like, they're kind of like groups, but they're also not like groups in Max. But for all intents and purposes, right now, they're groups. Just see them as that, because it's gonna be too complex to explain it more, for now at least. So right now, if I click on this arrow, we see that all of these three objects are in a collection, right? So I can toggle the whole collection, the whole group. So collections are just scene management basically, right? So you can just group objects together, hide them and stuff. It's just for that, it's great. I will show you how to make a new collection, but not yet. Actually, wait, no. Yeah, I can do it now real quick. So let's say I want my cameras to be in a separate collection. I can click on my camera or select it, and then press M, which is really confusing, right? So letter M, you'll get this, move to collection. So that's how you can remember it. M is move to. You can move it to a existing collection. In this case, we have two, scene and the regular one, right? Or you can make a new one. Molection, yes. Oh wait, hold on. Yeah, it's not disappearing for me either, actually. So someone said, for people rewatching the stream, that this gizmo in the top right, which is for if you don't like to navigate with shift and scroll wheel, you can just use this to orbit. I hate it, but you know, it's there. Almost forgot about it. That's disappearing for someone. That is odd. Is it because you have this open? No, it's not the issue. Oh wait, hold on. And you press. Oh wait, yeah. Oh no, wait. If you press G, right, it's gone. No, so I don't think there's an option for that immediately. But there is, you know, you have the grid on the bottom, right? So you have the red is X, Y is green. So unless you're colorblind, that's kind of an issue. But yeah, it disappears when you're doing that because of just how it works. It's kind of sad. You might get used to it. Maybe give it a second, right? So collections basically are groups, right? So I have my camera selected. I press M to collection, move to collection. I can click on an existing one. So I have two here, right? Or a new one. I'll make a new one. Call it cameras. Click OK. You can also press Enter, not just click on OK. So now we see that our camera is in a separate collection, right? So now we have our regular one, right? And our camera. So that's really powerful about it, basically. I'm gonna Control Z that real quick. Alright. So you can make collections that way. You can nest collections. You can do cooler stuff with collections as well, which I'm not going to get into right now. But suffice to say, they're really powerful. They're new with 2.8, and you will probably love them and hate them a bit, because I did too. So that's basically the outliner, you know, the basic functionality. There are a lot of extra functions in there. You can search, rename stuff in batches or single things. There's filters for, you know, restriction toggles, filters for what exactly is showing up in your outliner. You know, you have search options. You have this thing, which I'm not gonna get into yet. So it's not quite folders, but yeah, it's a bit different. So folder plus more. So yeah, but we're not gonna get into it right now. But you can nest collections, orphan data. Yeah. Well, I can quickly go over what that is, right? So if you click on this drop down here, you have scenes, which are basically separate scenes within a single blend file, which is great again for management of all of stuff. Yeah, view layers, you only have one currently. That's for compositing. Is there a button for center to object? Yes. Control numpad period. So it'll focus on whatever you have selected. Control and then numpad period. Which I never use, to be honest. I had to look it up. I'll explain how to search for stuff. We'll get to it in a second. But we're not done yet. Yeah, numpad period, yeah. Oh, just numpad period? Hold on. Interesting. Why does the search thingy set something else? Well, whatever. Just numpad 0. Oh, like that, like the actual object, Alt G. Alright, yeah. So let's say you've done something stupid with your object, right? You've moved it way over there. Where is it? It's... I don't know even where. In that case... I'm zooming in way too far, right? Alright, let's say it's gone, right? Alt G will reset the transform. That's what you meant, Waffle, my bad. So Alt G is for that. Is it on the PDF actually? Is it? No? Nope. Okay. Also, I've seen a question come by about incremental moving. So if I press G and hold Control, I can move in steps, right? In steps of 1 meter, it seems. Is there an option to reduce the step amount? I'm not sure. There might be somewhere. Maybe. Oh, if you do Shift and Control, it's even smaller. Then it's in 0.1. Yeah, there you go. Shift, Control G, and the snapping will be smaller. And it depends on the grid size, apparently. Alright, well, there's lots of options on the top here as well. Again, there's lots of things. We're just gonna go into it step by step, because it's a lot of stuff. I still need to go over the gizmos. I'll do that after I'm done with the outliner. It's a bit messy, but yeah. So outliner basically just management, scene organization, setting up stuff for renders as well. We'll get to that in a few weeks, hopefully. Yeah, also this is on meters by default, by the way, because Waffle just said it's on meters. Keep it on meters. Why would you ever use anything else? You can go for unitless, so it's just one blender unit instead of a meter, which is nice, I guess. I don't know. I keep it on meters because I work at real world scale. But there's also other options. Centimeters if you have really small objects, or larger stuff. There's imperial options as well, but you know, keep it on metric, guys. Come on. No imperial here. We're not American. Luckily, no. So outliner again, just like management, scene management. Let's get back to the viewport real quick, the main thing here, and let's do those gizmo things because you guys are from Macs, so I have to. So if you click on these things, that's the equivalent of pressing Q, W, E, and R on Macs, right? So if I have move selected, I'll get these nice gizmos, right? Nice big arrows so you don't misclick it. If you click on the diamond shapes, or they're squares, you'll move, you know, in that plane. That's great. If you press in the middle, it's a free move. Like that, right? So same with rotate. If you press the white, click on the white thing, you'll just do a freeform rotation. And then red and yellow, right? I mean, it's kind of basic, right? Same for scaling. You can do that or that, right? Same as Max, yeah, basically. So there, I never use this, but there are cases where you want to have the gizmo, you want to use the gizmos instead of the shortcut. And I will give an example of that later. So if you're used to the Max way, use these things, but please try the Blender way with shortcuts. It's a bit weird at first, but it is a lot faster. An example is, for example, let's say I want to, like I have a really big cube, right? Ooh, that's a bit big. Let's say my cube is this big, right? And I click it on it here, and I want to move it. I have to drag my mouse all the way over here, and then move it. And also I have to be accurate enough to actually hit these things. I always struggled with that in Max, to like click on the right thing, or like, for example, like this, right? Like, oh, I want to move it in, shit, oh no, I'm clicking the wrong thing, right? So that's what's so nice about hotkeys. You can just click an object and go. You just press G and you go. It's so much faster. So I generally keep it off, the gizmo, personally. If you want all 3 of them in one, which is, I have no idea why, but sure, you have the transform one, and if you click on that, you have moving, scaling, and rotating all in one, which please don't. I will ban you. No, please don't do that. But if you like it, it's there. The option is there, right? There. So let's go over a few more settings in this like main thing. There are other stuff like annotate and measure. Not going over that now. They're handy, but they're not required for the basics. So in this top header here, not this one, like, you know, the one right below file and stuff, that's your tool header. So that just shows the settings for whatever active tool you have currently. So now we have box select, for example. I'm gonna check. Yeah. So you have box select right now. It's like in Photoshop, kind of. So you just have different ways of selecting things. So new selection, extend the current one, subtract it, inverts, intersect. So you have all those things like in Photoshop. Also, if you don't know what something is, every icon, well, sorry, most icons have a tooltip. So if I hover over this thing, it'll show me it's called move, and then it'll go shortcut, shift spacebar, or G. I'll talk about shift spacebar in a second, but we're just gonna do this first. So the box select, for example, here has these functions, right? These things at the top are global things. They're not really tool specific, like, you know, your transform orientation, your pivot points, snapping or not, and then smooth selection from max. We call it proportional editing, but it's smooth selection from max. I hope the buffer isn't too bad. I'm gonna check my stream real quick. Yeah, we have some dropped frames, but I can't do much about that. Hope it's not too bad. So yeah, soft selection, we have that as well in Blender. So it works on objects, but also in edit mode, right? So I can have, well, wait, I'm gonna show how to add more objects in a second, but let's do this first. So just tool options on the left here, and then you have some general options for your viewport. So oh, that's interesting. Huh. Yeah, there's some options here. I never play with those, but they're there. Okay, that's for your tool. So if I click on a different tool, you can see, well, in the case of these 3, it never changes because they're basically the same thing, right? But see how this has, you know, you can change the pivots, the coordinate system, and then how it works and whatever. So, oh yeah, if you're in move tool, you can also box select something and move them in one go. So that's great. And you can change how you select them as well. And it has these, you know, Photoshop-esque options for how the selection is interpreted as well. But you would probably use shortcuts for that. But yeah, like, you know, Control B, right? B and Control B. Sorry, Control B is box select. That's the actual shortcut. But you can just, if you're on move and you click and drag, you have a box select. Yeah, so I'm on the tool here, a move tool, right? But I can still box select stuff. And if I go to the tool header here, I can select, right? I can do a lasso select, for example, right? Or circle, which you get like this kind of like brush. I can't select stuff. Also nice. I prefer box, right? That's always what I use. I don't use these tools, but there's options for it. Scaling here as well has scale cage. Oh, that's interesting. Ooh, okay. Never used that, but there's an option if you want it. So it has scale cage, which is maybe a bit more intuitive. I don't know. That might be nice for certain things. I don't use it. So you click and hold on an icon to change it if it has the option. So this one has the little like arrow icon, so you can do it. So that's kind of basic navigation and selecting things. I've explained the outliner here. Nice scale CNIP. I would personally, so for rotate, scale, and grab, you can select stuff, S for example, and I can input stuff into my numpad, for example 1.5, and hit enter, and it's scaled up exactly 1.5 times. Yeah, if you want to reset certain things. So Alt G will reset position, Alt S will reset scale, Alt R will reset rotation. So I'll do all three of them, right? Scaling, rotating, moving. So Alt R resets rotation, Alt S resets scale, Alt G reset position. And I think, that's what I'm gonna go over for now. See, that's what I mean, Waffle. Teaching teaches you more. You didn't even notice. Well, now you do. So there's two ways, by the way, right? So you can use a shortcut, or what I always do is if I move, scale, and rotate something, I can just go over here, and I can do two things. Or I do 0, tab, 0, tab, 0. Oh, and not for the scale should be 1. Like that. Or if I do, if I undo that real quick, where are you? Right, I can also right click on a one of those input fields, and I can do reset all to default value. So all will be the entire location section, and if I do reset single, it's only that axis. So you can do it this way, or with Alt, G, S, and R. So we'll go over that. So that's kind of the basics of like moving around, doing stuff. So before we take a short break / you can start playing with it now. How do we add extra primitives? Because in Max, right, we have this we have a panel here on the right somewhere, right? And so how do we do that? Very easy. Shift A, so Shift Add, and you'll get all these options. We're just interested in Mesh for now. Don't look at the rest. They are also interesting, but we don't need them. So Mesh. You don't have to hold Shift A. You just click it once, press it once. So plane, cube, circle, UV sphere, icosphere, cylinder, cone, torus. So let's put in well, actually, I'm going to first delete this cube because we have to. Deleting is either with the delete key or with X. Right, so I'm going to do it X. You can click or press enter for that. So where does it make a new object? At the 3D cursor. That's this thing that I'm moving around right now. So if you want to move around your 3D cursor, it's Shift right click. What that thing is, we'll go over. It's super handy. It's just it's like a working pivot basically, but it's not per object, so it's very strong. So in Blender, wherever this thing is, and you press Shift A to add something, you'll get an object. So we'll probably do the monkey. That's Suzanne. That's the it's the mascot of Blender basically. So as you can see, its origin, this orange dot, is at the 3D cursor's location. So if I move it around and I move add a monkey, it's gonna be there, right? Ooh. All right. So we have that here now. So that's how you add objects, right? So you can be like, let's add. Oh, what if you want to reset your cursor? That's kind of nice to know. Shift S. YS, I don't know. Shift S, and you can do cursor to world origin. So this is a pie menu basically. If you've used Maya, you probably know what it is. So it's just, yeah, it's a pie menu. So you can do cursor to world origin. It has a bunch of other options, which are super handy. Shift S because it's selection but also cursor, so yeah. Oh, the max way of adding objects, by the way, is being added in 2.9. So if you prefer that, like kind of dragging out a cube or a sphere or whatever, that's coming. It's nice, but I don't need it personally, but it's there eventually in 2.9, which will be in like 3 months, I think, or less. So Shift S to reset your cursor basically to world origin. There's other options as well, of course, but again, let's not go over those. So Shift and right click to move your cursor. You can click either or you can drag. And then Shift S, click on this to reset it. So let's play around, right? You can add a plane, scale it up maybe. I'll put my cursor here. Let's make maybe a cool cube. So you can just play around now, right? So you've kind of seen it. Check your cheat sheet, the PDF for like the exact keys if you forgot. Or we can use the tools, right? I'm gonna go over here. Let's add sphere. There's some extra options for these objects, but first just kind of get comfortable with placing them as they are and scaling them. You know, if you have one selected, Alt-A to deselect it, right? Let's do a cylinder here. I'm just doing weird stuff. I'm not even... Yeah, alright. Let's see. Just play around with it. There's lots of cool primitives you can use to do all kinds of cool stuff. You can maybe rotate stuff. What else do we have here? A cone. Oh, that's great. Looks a bit weird. Alright, so we have a masterpiece here. Oh, donuts. Yeah, we have donuts as well. We call them toruses. Or tori, sorry, that's the right name. Because we're scientific and stuff. So you have donuts as well. There. First tutorial done. You made a donut. So, has everyone kind of done this? Or like started doing this? If you want to take a break now, go pee or something. I will... So it's now 15:51. We will continue at 4. Like with all the other stuff. There's lots of stuff still left to cover, but we'll get there. Can you snap objects as well? Yes. So let's not go over that now, though. That's more of a more complicated thing. Camel boy. Viewport UI options. Yeah. So I should probably talk about that as well. But first, now, how long will it be? 2 hours? I'm guessing at this space 3. I'm just gonna go over the way to disable the grid. There's no hotkey, but yeah, as Waffle said, there is a little menu in the top right here. This one, and you have grid and floor. You can turn, and the axis you can turn that off if you don't like it. Like if you're like sculpting or something, right? That's nice. So it'll be 3 hours probably, maybe longer. Yeah, I'm sorry that you can't attend the whole thing. I mean, I kind of figured, but yeah. So again, for those who are not paying attention, if you want to pee right now, do it. I'm just gonna answer questions from chat, so it'll be on the stream as well. As if you click the actual button, it'll get rid of everything. It's quite nice. I still have to go over this top header bar, but like, yeah. Read workshop prep. Ooh, okay. I'm gonna quickly check. Alright. There's no people joining still, damn it. Alright. Like, people are joining right now, it's like, you just so let's see, at the screencast add-on I can't really change much. Sadly. I don't like it, actually. This one was made by JNM, a YouTuber. Oh, the ribbon. You mean... Oh, the tool ribbon, alright. If you don't have it, you go to View, Tool Settings, right there. So if I... you can also access the tool in this window down here, the Properties window, but yeah. Send your mind. Yeah, for now I think we're just... These kinds of things, I'll fix them by next live stream probably, because it's a bit... I'll just be a bit more... I mean, I'm saying all the shortcuts anyways already, so I hope it's doable. This one should have it. Right. Yeah, because this one's like a different one. It's called like Shortcut Viewer. I thought it was good, but yeah, apparently not. I can't even change the size of this thing. So if it's too small, I'll fix it by next live stream. So we still have around 5 minutes. I don't want to explain new stuff, just kind of like questions. I'm gonna scroll a bit, see what else. So I can maybe quickly go over snapping. So it's really just this thing right here, snap. And then it'll snap the origin. Oh, sorry. So snapping, and then you have to change the type of snapping to face, for example, and it'll kind of. I think it uses the I don't actually know what it uses to snap. It's not the origin, so I don't. It's a bit finicky in object mode, except like, you know, snapping something to the ground. Like if I do, if I disable it, right? I snap it again. It snaps it to ground, to like a floor pretty well, but like it's a bit weird. So snapping is more of an edit mode thing, personally. That's like quite handy in my opinion. But there's lots of options again, so these drop downs next to them have a lot of interesting stuff. This is all in object mode, by the way, so we're not really doing anything yet. So I'm gonna just... Oh, for those curious, because this is not really something part of the live stream, but just kind of fun, you have different shading modes. So here's Eevee, it's the default. So look, real-time rendering, you can just drag stuff around, you know, like... It's great for concepting. I'm gonna go over this, like this is not... whoever is not here, it's just kind of for fun. So the default rendering engine will be Eevee. There's these buttons up here you can use, or Z, and then just selecting stuff. So rendered, and then yeah, you can do lots of cool stuff with this. How do I move? Hold up. Oh wait, no, it's a joke. Or add your face to close next to stuff. Snapping should be just face. Oh, hold up. Oh wait, yeah. So you have lots of settings for snapping. Whoever asked that, I think it was Zihi. Yeah. So snapping just has a bunch of options. Just see which one works. You have to experiment a bit, because I don't have a lot of time to go over everything. Same goes for proportional editing. I'll go over that in modeling next week, probably. Well, next week, next workshop. We're still kind of deciding how often we do these things. Maybe once a week, twice a week. We don't know. We have to ask people what works for them. Yeah. So we still have 2 minutes. What can I show or explain that isn't crucial? Well, first of all, have you guys been having some fun with your stuff? We have a channel basically called Student Showcase. At the end of the workshop, whatever you made, put it in there. Like, really fun. How do you group stuff? Grouping. Okay, so there's well, I'm not sure. So Waffle, do we still have groups, or is it all collections now? Because I just use collections. Or do you still have groups? I'm not sure. What if I... Yeah, so you just have... Oh, I hate that. Oh, I hate that. Yeah, no, don't... just use collections. Because... Okay, yeah. So collections... but groups apparently still aren't working. Like, they do some janky shit. I don't like it. So, if you make a group is basically still a collection, but it won't show up in your outliner, which is really annoying in my opinion. So I just always use collections. Just so select some objects, press M for move to collection. Either move it to an existing one or a new one that you can make right there. So if I do it again here, M, so an existing one or a new one, enter, right? So now it's in a separate collection, right? So that's kind of nice about it. No, so Nightfall, we have a small project at the end. I will post it in resources. Just a small like modeling assignment. Shouldn't take too long. So yeah, so groups again. It's everything is collections, but it's basically groups. But it's more powerful in my opinion than groups. It's better. I'm gonna see if there's any more like small questions. I'm gonna check my own notes. Oh, I've actually kind of I've gone over 2 sections, so that's actually better. It might actually only take 3 hours, yeah, or less than 3. Let's see. So I made a little scene. That's kind of cool. I'm proud of this. We're gonna render it and upload it to ArtStation. Nah. Unwrap this lawnmower. No, we're not doing that. But we do have some. Well, not yet, but we are planning on making like more small assignments, like we have in class, because you learn by doing, right? It's really the best way to go about it. Also, how many people are here? I'm gonna quickly check how many we have. 14 people, not bad. I was expecting less. Because it's like, oh, it's DVR'd anyways, I can check it on live stream. It's 1:04, by the way, so we're gonna get going again. Else it's gonna be boring. So, let's check my notes. Alright, before we go into edit mode and modeling, let's go over some extra things. Two extra things mainly. You probably noticed already this thing is extremely faceted. There's no smooth shading. How do you get smooth shading? You click on something, right click, that's your object context menu. If you're in edit mode or in different modes, it'll be a different menu, but right click is usually a menu. So in this case we have two options at the top, shade smooth, shade flat. There's a bunch of other stuff, but let's not worry about that right now. So shade smooth, yay, it's a smooth donut. We can do the same for this cube. Let's see what happens then. I'm gonna turn my snapping off. If I shade this smooth, oh, that looks kind of bad. Why? We don't have smoothing groups yet. I'll go over what they are after this. But for now, this is how ugly it's going to be because there's no smoothing groups, right? It's all one group to Blender. So yeah, just right click, shade smooth, and you just get that. So here you can also see it on this thing. Ooh, I'm gonna hide this maybe. So you see, it's kind of fucking up, which is normal. Right, so that's kind of shading stuff basically. There are two more things I need to mention before we go on to modeling, which is, what is this thing on the right? There's a bunch of buttons in here. I won't go over everything I think, but we're just gonna like kind of gloss over stuff, and you can read what's in there as well. You know. But let's start with our viewport, because we have this nice, 3D viewport here. But what about our other stuff, right? Like what if I want to animate or render or materials? What do I do then, right? So by default, this already has a second window open. If I click and drag on this center bit, this darker line, I can pull it up and down. So that's our timeline. I can click and drag this, right? So we'll just keep that there for now, right? Let's say you want to make a new window, right, while modeling or something. How do we do that? Real easy. These windows are rounded. They have rounded corners. So when you get into a corner, your cursor will change to this like crosshair. Click and drag to the left. Oh wait, hold it. Yeah, like that. So if you click and drag to the left, you will get a second window. Like that. So yay, you have a second one. But it's the 3D viewport twice. I guess that's handy, right? I can do this and like see what I'm doing. Wow. So how do I change it? Here in the top left. Oh wait, someone says wait. Can you redo that? Yes, alright. So if you go into the corners, right here, you see how your crosshair cursor changes. So click and you can, for example, drag up or left, right? So you can change a window like that, and if you hover over something and drag into a neighboring window, you close it again. You fucked up, right? I was just getting to that. How do I get back to my 3D viewport, right? Each viewport has this button in the top left, right? And you can change whatever you're seeing, right? So you have this right now, right? So you can just go click on it, 3D viewport. You can see it has shortcuts, which is kind of cool. You can do like, let's find one that's cool. I don't know, Shift F11, alright. Oh, text editor, nice. You can just click on the thing in the top left. Windows are a bit tough to get down. Yeah, okay, fair point. I want to rush a bit too much. So again, if you have the issue that I'm seeing here, go to the top left and you can just change the editor type. So 3D viewport or drivers, whatever there is. It's a bunch of buttons. Yeah, it's a 2.8 thing, but maybe you didn't see. any viewporters. Oh Jesus. Oh god. Okay, so again, if you want to drag a new one, go into these corners until your cursor changes and just drag. Either to the left or right or top to bottom, it depends. And then if you want to close it again, you just drag it into a different window. Maybe one thing to note is if I have this, right? I can't do that. I can't drag from this top left window to the bottom. It doesn't work, right? So I can do that and that, right? So it has to be mergeable, if that makes sense, right? If I have a quad view like this, or tree, it's like, well, if I merge this one, right, and this one, what would happen? I would get an L-shaped window. No, that doesn't work, right? Only rectangles. So that's really nice for when you're like working here and you want to maybe have an image editor open, or maybe your graph editor for animating stuff. There is normally also a way to split it off. I don't know. Oh wait, yeah. So if you want a separate window, I'm not dragging that fast, am I? So does everyone have it now how to do it, or are you still struggling with it? Whoosh. Yeah. So again, just hover into a corner and just see until your cursor changes. Yeah, you can hide it. So another thing, maybe if you're like modeling and you're like, I don't need all these extra panels, control space will maximize the current viewport where your mouse is in. So I can do this, right? So control space and then control space to go back. So I'm gonna go over all of these. Like, there's also workspaces, which are like presets basically. This is the default one layout. I'll go over that in a second. You can change your defaults as well, but I just have it open because I get not bothered by it. So people have it down now, kind of like creating them, closing them again, or creating one and changing it to something else, right? If not, just take a moment. I'm gonna drink some water. How did I get it down below it? So if I'm dragging, right, I can do a drag upwards, or a drag to the left, right? So I can just, the direction in which you drag matters. And then if you are on the dividing line, you can just move it by clicking. Another small thing, if you have two different things open like this and you want to kind of switch places, you can right click on the dividing line and you can swap areas or join areas, and then you get the option. The arrow indicates what is being merged to what. All timeline. Okay, if you have the all timeline, just go to editor type and change this to, so it's going to be like this normally, right? Just 3D viewport. This doesn't get control Z'd, by the way. You can't be like, oh, right, it doesn't do anything. So why is my camera view so small? If you mean like this, just zoom in, just scroll wheel in. You can shift drag around just like in normal view, right, in your camera. But we're getting to cameras later on, like let's not worry about cameras for now. Yeah, so if you want a second window, really easy, go to window, new window. Like, and then you can have separate things open there. I don't think it's like an actual shortcut. You just like be like, oh hey, put this somewhere else, like this, and then be like, oh, I want to have this go into a different window. I don't think. No, that's not an option, I think. Which is kind of sad, but it would be nice. But yeah, if you want a new window, it's via the window button. So you have new window, new main window. I don't know what that difference is. I don't know. I think hold on. Yeah, I don't know what the difference is between new main window and new non-main window. Whatever. It doesn't matter. And then there's some other options there as well, but you know, any window is, yeah. You can pop out. Yeah, as far as I know, you can't like choose like, oh, if I have something open here, you can't pop out this window directly. Like there's no like dragging of this, which is kind of sad. Yeah, so you can't do that. Maybe you can, maybe it's something obscure, but I'm not bothered by it. I'm usually working with reference on my Max by default, like if you're splitting your view, I don't think it can, but by default it opens up your material editor and your UV editor in separate windows, right? Blender it's your choice how you want to do it. So that's that. Is there a way to save your own viewport setup? Yes. I'm gonna get back to that in a second, because that's workspace related. And I want to show the other ones first. So by default, if I reopen Blender, if I do it like so, I'm gonna do some weird stuff, right? I'm gonna go like that, right? So I have all this mess. If I go to File, New, and then General, don't save, I will lose that. But you can save it. I'm gonna check my notes. I'm not forgetting anything. Yeah, let's go over workspaces first, and then we're gonna go into modes finally, so we can talk about modeling. Almost. So this is your default. It's just called layout. The top bar shows which layout you're in, right? There's modeling, which is a bit cleaner, I guess, and you're in edit mode immediately as well. Sculpting, which looks like, hold up. Yeah, okay. You know, sculpting, yay! I'm not gonna go over this now, but you know, just saying, there's something that's called sculpting, so you can do all kinds of cool stuff, like this weird thing. I don't know. I'm not good at sculpting, if you can't tell, but I'm gonna explain it later on. UV editing, so you can be, you know, again, this is just kind of showing stuff, but you know, you can unwrap stuff, you can texture paint stuff, which can I quickly, I'm doing random stuff here, but I'm going to explain this more in depth, just showing it off real quick. So texture painting, shading workspace, you know, materials, so you can change you know, the roughness and all kinds of cool stuff. Can you lock a window? What do you mean by that? Like, can you elaborate by that? Locking one, so it's like, yeah, so in yeah, so don't worry about sculpting. I'm gonna go get back to that when we do it, but that's just because you don't have dynamic topology on. Don't worry about it right now. So there's animation as well, rendering, which is just this, compositing, and scripting, and then there's a bunch of extra ones down here as well. So video editing, rendering, wait, no, sorry, let's try video editing. This one, right? So it has a video editor, which is quite cool. You can right click on something to delete it. I don't recommend doing that, but and don't actually move out of that view. There's maybe an option to do that. Sketchfab, is that? Yeah, there's material preview as well, but we'll get to that in a second. Like, don't get ahead of yourself. I think there's a way to lock a view, but I wouldn't know how. Maybe here. No, but I mean, you can probably find it. I bet that's an option, but it doesn't really. Like, usually just have it there, and then I might work on something else. But as soon as you move, yeah, it'll go out of it. I haven't done something important yet. Oops. So yeah, workspaces, right? You can also save your own. So you can create, for example, let's do this, right? Let's change this to this and this to whatever. Right? Then we can do this on the plus, right? Plus icon, duplicate current, and we can double click it to rename it, like testing, right? So now if I go to a new file, don't save. Oh, it's not there. It should have. I think it's in the settings somewhere. I've never done it personally because I don't even use workspaces personally. I just kind of build up what I need. Like, oh, I need materials. I'll do that, and then I close it again. The only one I use is texture painting and sculpting because it's like, oh, okay. But usually I'm just in layout and I just modify what I need temporarily. Like, it's very freeform for me personally, but you can look up how to save workspaces and load them from different files. There's tons of resources on that, but not for this first workshop. Suffice to say, workspaces are really cool for customizing if you're into that, and the default ones that are there are just nice to like be able to, oh, I want a texture paint, alright, texture paint, add a texture, base color, done, and I can start painting because this is auto unwrapped. So that's kind of nice. Let's see. New. Right. So let me check my notes. Before I talk about modes, I should probably mention the numpad. So, as we noticed earlier, 0 will switch to the camera view. Oh wait, my shortcut viewer started working. Oops. So 0 switches to your camera. Yeah, again, you can't paint, but we'll talk about it later. It's fine. So 1 is front view, 3 is right view, 7 is top, and then if you're in perspective, 5 will switch it to isometric, oh, to orthographic. Never model in orthographic, guys, always use perspective. If you are in front view, for example, and you want to move to the left view, there's no button for that, right? So, because 3 is right, 1 is front. So, with the 4 and 6 keys, you can switch perspective, basically. You can like kind of move around. Same with 8 and 2, you can kind of... So that's kind of nice, to kind of get a different angle. Like that. Yeah, you can also alt drag to kind of snap into a view. Just kind of cool, but I don't use it often, personally. Or really control and that's interesting. I didn't know that. So 1 is front view, control 1 is back view. 3 is right view, control 3 is left view. 7 is top, control 7 is bottom. There you go. But just use the regular keys, right? So 1, 3, 0, 7, 5 to switch to perspective. You also see what you're in the top left. So if you want to do this with buttons, not with shortcuts, there is these handles on this gizmo in the top right, and for perspective you can click on this button. Just again, everything has tooltips, right? So if you not sure, like, what does this thing do? Oh, zoom in and out of view. So there's buttons as well. Here is a camera view, right? Thing to note, you can't change your perspective orthographic mode if you're in the camera view, because the camera view is either perspective or orthographic. Like, you can change it in its settings, and that's always like that. So that's fine. So there's buttons for that as well. Yeah. Okay, so far so good. So these orthographic views are kind of nice. It's disorienting right now because you're using a cube, so it's like, oh, it all looks the same. And if you have a more complex model, it will, if I put in Suzanne again, let's see, then it's a bit less discomforting, I hope. Right, oh, there you go. Import my car. I might show that later, but it's not really a stream thing. Alright, so yeah, shortcuts, numpad is really nice. I prefer that over Max because it's like T for top view, yeah. That seems handy, right? But yeah. So before we talk about modes, I keep putting it off, but we should first talk about this giant panel here, which is called the properties window. So properties kind of says it itself. It's not the same as your properties panel. It's different, but there's also overlap. So we'll just go down everything, right? I should probably add a cube again, because then we have more options. So first thing in your properties window is the tool and workspace settings. So you see it here, here, and here. There's three places where you can see your tool, but you can disable some of them. So so tool. Next thing, the camera icon is your rendering settings, which is just like which engine, amount of samples, other settings, denoising, is a film transparent or not, performance, volumetrics, all kinds of things, right? Output properties like, you know, resolution, image type, frame start and end, output location, you know. Then view layers is where you have, well, we'll get to that later, but it's for rendering, right? Then scene is scene properties, so is there gravity, what's the main camera, audio, all kinds of extra settings, right? So yeah, Eevee is great. Someone said I've heard Eevee is awesome. It is. But that's the default, by the way. If you check your render properties, the render engine is Eevee by default. That's the like game engine style rendering engine. And you have the world properties, so the background color, maybe it's a HDRI, right? Volume, viewport, you know, all kinds of stuff. Then next one down, this orange thing, is your object properties. So again, there you can see the same things as here, right? Your location, rotation, scale, relations, which is like parenting, collections, which is like groups, a bunch of other stuff. Again, this is kind of stuff you can look at yourself and kind of just mess with, and if you break something, just open a new file. What's the difference between Cycles and Eevee? Eevee is a game engine style rendering system, and Cycles is path traced, basically. That's the main difference. So Eevee is very, very fast, and Cycles is very accurate. But you can get pretty good results with Eevee. Like, it's reasonably powerful when used correctly. That's the main difference, really. So then you have a modifier tab. We know that this from Max. Not gonna touch on it today. That's for next week. It depends on the project, indeed. Like someone said, like if you're doing an animation, right? You might want to use Eevee because it's very fast. I've done rendering stuff like an animation that's half a minute long, and it takes 18 minutes to render on Eevee, which is very fast compared to Cycles, right? So it depends. Then you have your particle system stuff. Again, that's for way later. Physics tab, we use for physics. Object constraints, which is made for like rigging and all kinds of cool stuff. And then this triangle object. Oh, sorry, no, not object properties. It's object data properties. That's where you will find vertex groups, shape keys, which is something cool. UV maps, vertex colors, face maps, normals, all kinds of cool stuff. Yeah. And then the second to last tab here is the materials, which is kind of self-explanatory. This menu here basically is kind of like the slate editor from Max, right? It's the simplified view. So I can just add a material and I have all these options here I can play with. You won't see them because we're not in rendered view or in look dev mode. So if I switch to that, for example, right, I can change the metallicness, roughness, specular, which won't do much, color, right? That's all in look dev, viewport shading, right? So we should go back to normal. We're not touching that for now. I'm going to remove this even. You don't need a material right now. So that last tab is the texture tab. We never use that, honestly. I mean, we do, but not for most things, especially not modeling, obviously. So we'll put it back on the render settings, the second to last one, because that's what I always have it on. It's kind of a habit. So now we can finally talk about different modes and modeling. Before we start modeling, we'll take a break, but I'm gonna finish this off first. So what are modes? In Max you have your object mode. You can move around the whole object, and then you also have kind of edit poly mode, right? So how do we change that in Blender? There's two options. There's the button way. In the top left here you have all kinds of options. You have object mode, which is you move the whole object. Edit mode, you're gonna manipulate vertices, edges, and faces. Sculpting, vertex paint, weight, and texture. We're not going to focus on most of them, just object and edit mode. So you can do it in here, right? Or you can press tab. It'll switch between object and edit mode. So in tab, again, we can select everything with A, Alt A to deselect, right? So in edit mode, we will see all these black lines and dots. Oh yeah, and it's instant. It's very quick. Even with heavy measures, getting into edit mode is extremely fast. So we're now in edit mode. We have all these tools on the left side. We'll expand this a bit by clicking on it and dragging, so we see everything in one go, right? So there's no difference between pressing tab or just switching here. There's no difference, of course. So grab, rotate, and scale still work in edit mode, but you have to select something first, of course. So if you left click a vertex, you can press G and you can move the vertex around. Yay, alright, so we're now moving vertices. Vertex select is the default mode. So let's say I want to select a face or an edge. I can go to the top left here, click on the edge. Now I have an edge. I can rotate it as well, scale it, right? Or faces. Now I can click on a face, right? So you have the buttons up here, or 1, 2, and 3. Let's switch between the 3. Also, if you have a face selected and you press 2, it'll select the edges for you. If you press 1, it'll make it into vertices. Obviously, if you have one edge selected and you go to face, it'll select nothing. Oh yeah, not on the numpad. It's on the top. You have to do it. Good that someone mentions that. So G is for grabbing. I can rotate edges or groups of vertices, right? I can rotate them, scale them, everything still works. And the axis locking also works. You can do GZ, GY, same for rotate and scale. So that's just the basic moving around of existing vertices. I'm gonna put in a new cube, go into edit mode, right? What are all these tools on the left? So again, if you hover over any of them, they'll give you the shortcut. I will be showing you the shortcuts, but if you want to do a specific thing like extruding or beveling, and you don't know how, then you can either use the buttons or look it up in your cheat sheet or whatever, right? Or you can hover over it and like, oh, extrude region is E or shift spacebar. I'll quickly touch on what that is. So shift spacebar is the tools menu. If I don't have this open, right, and like, oh well, I want to bevel, you can press shift and space and you can access all of it there. Nice thing about that is you don't have to have your mouse here. You can just go like, oh, I need insets or extrude, right? So you can just kind of do it that way. So let's go over, wait, maybe a break first. Let's see if I forgot anything else. I don't think I did. So these are all the tools basically. I would say I will first explain them and then you can take a short break maybe. Yeah, if that's okay. Or you want to take a break now first again. Now someone's leaving. Oh. Explain it now? Alright, because nobody's answering except Waffle. Let's go over some of the basic ones, right? We'll start by going to face select with our tree button. Let's do extruding first. So I'm going to click on the tool first. Oh, anyone else? Quality going down. Stream's good. No? Yeah? Okay, you got it? Okay. So we can do it via the tools here, or we can just do it by the shortcuts. I'm going to show the tools first, because they are, like, even if you're used to Macs, I think the Blender ones are still better. So we'll just use the tool buttons. So I'm in face select mode, I have my extrude region selected. I'll click on a face and I'll get this gizmo. So I can just click and drag. Yay, I'm extruding. Right? Click a different face, extrude those two, or shift select two of them, extrude along the average normal. Right? I can extrude multiple times on the same face. So this is what the tool is good for, right? If I want to do this, if I wanted to do this kind of behavior with just the shortcut, which for extrude is E, right? I will have to do E, press E again. I have to press E every time I want to extrude. So that's what the tool is nice for. It has a gizmo and you don't have to keep pressing the shortcut. Like pressing E more, same. So let's try inset, right? So again, inset has this nice gizmo. If we drag it towards the face, or inset, and again, we can do it multiple times, right? So you can just do this, So like that, or if you want to do it with the shortcut, I is inset. So I inset, like that. So we're just going over the basics of it. There are some extra minutiae to it, and you can see that after we do it. I'm going to show it off with bevel, because bevel is kind of interesting. So if we click on bevel, and we select, let's go into edge mode, select these 4 edges, right? I'm going to drag it now, and there. We've now chamfered, right? And that's it, right? So we just have like, oh, wait, we just done that. We just did a simple chamfer. What if you want to do like an actual proper bevel with like more segments? We can drag, keep holding it. And now if you look at the very bottom, which I can't do because then that happens. Look at the very bottom, you see a lot of keys and numbers going, right? So right now I'm adjusting the width. You can see how the width is 0, and then I go up to 0.3 here, right? So it's kind of moving at the bottom. If I, while still holding my button down, scroll up, I get more segments. Like this. Scroll up and down controls my segments. So I can do both at once, basically. If I want to have a specific width of bevel, right? So it's over chamfer, like I want to have a bevel of 0.2. While still holding left click, I can type in 0.2. Oh, no, I can't. Interesting. You have to press A first, maybe. Oh wait, no, yeah. Okay, so it doesn't actually seem to want to work. Oh, it does. Okay, I didn't have numlock on. That's fine. So if we bevel, we hold left click and just do 0.5, for example, right? We type it in our numpad. We get a bevel that has exactly a width of 0.5. I will go over what width means in the context of bevel when I talk about modifiers, because modifiers, the bevel modifier has some extra settings that are not just width based, which you'll see later, like in a week or two. So beveling works that way. We have the knife tool, right, which can just cut all sorts of crazy stuff and completely make a ton of engons, so don't, unless you know how to use it. Again, for knife tool, if I start cutting, there are some extra options. So, for example, there is Z cut through or C angle constraint. So I can kind of work in 45-degree increments, for example, and I can turn it off and on with C. Z will cut through the mesh. So if I have it turned on, I press enter, you see how it cuts through. So there's plenty of options there. But personally, for all of these things, I prefer using the shortcuts. So for example, for beveling, it's going to be Control B or Control Shift B, depends. I think Control Shift B is vertices and Control B is edges or faces. So that's how it kind of works. So the nice thing here is I don't have to hold my left mouse button down. I can just kind of drag and do all my things, and then there's plenty of other options. You can just check what they all do, like, oh, profile, if I press P, ooh, I can do this. That's kind of cool. Ooh, that's kind of nice. I like that, right? So, or K for knife tool, and then I can press Z and just cut through, right? So I really urge you to use the shortcuts and not the tools. There's one case where that is nicer. It's again like with the extrude. If I want to do multiple loop cuts, like Swift Loop from Max, I can check the tool and just really quickly put in extra loops like this. There. Like that, right? So that's quite nice about it. There's supposedly should be an option to, hold up. Oh, for a loop cut, for example, you always have the option in the bottom, right? So if I hold it, I can do loop cut and slide, or I can do Control R and do it this way. But I have to press Control R every time. How can I freely use loop cuts? So if you are using the tool, how can you freely use it? You can click and drag. Alright? I'll go over how to make selections and stuff later, but yeah. So click and drag to freely move it around. But I prefer using the shortcut Control R, so I can click and then move it. So one other thing that's so nice about these tools is, let's say I want to not add in one loop, but two that are evenly spaced along this edge, right? If I scroll up once, I get 2 loops. So you can kind of control how many loop cuts you do, and they're evenly spaced. So this is amazing for when you're doing like you're blocking out a curve, but you know you need 8 vertices, so you make a straight line, you loop cut in 8 extra vertices, and you just move them. I mean, it's a simple example, but like that. So if I'm modeling something that has to be mirrored, for example, I'll get to those next workshop. Mirroring, that's a modifier. I can put one in the middle, right? Go into, oh wait, not go into wireframe, I'll explain that in a sec. I can delete 1/2, right, with X or delete, and I can mirror this. So by default, with Control R, it's always in the middle loop cut. So if I, oh yeah, maybe you can show that as well. I can do, I don't get more if I scroll. Yeah, so with the tool, I don't think that actually works. Maybe you have to hold? No. Okay, that kind of sucks. Oh wait, hold on. I think you can, yes, alright. So, if you're using the tool, you'll get a tool pop-up, kind of like in Max. So if you put this down, and you don't click anything else, you can go over here, open this up, and you can change the number of cuts here. And there's lots of other options as well, which you're not going to see on a cube, but like, yeah. So this is for when you're using a tool, but if you're using Control R, right, you do it before you click. I'm not clicking yet, right? Click, and now I only have 1. Now I can't change it anymore, right? So there's a difference between both. If you're like, oh, I need to have exact control or more control, I don't like using the buttons, I prefer having, I click it and then I change it here, right? That works too, right? It's a preference. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's not, depends. So there's lots of extra things you can do with this, like specifying the distance and all that. So there's lots of cool stuff you can do. But for now, we're not going into that. Maybe a quick thing, because we're going to be doing editing a lot where we want to select multiple vertices, is if you press Z, you'll get your shading menu. Shading with a Z, of course. If you go to the left, wireframe, you'll have wireframe. So that's that. It used to just be Z to toggle to wireframe, but now there's a pie menu. I think you can disable it if you prefer having just solid and wireframe and not these other 4 options. But in my opinion, it's not like I can just press and drag. It's super quick to switch in my opinion, so it's not a big deal for me. You press material preview and Blender closed. Wow, I don't have crashes often. Wait, does Toby? That's kind of weird. That shouldn't be the behavior. Well, for those that have pie menus, it's just click and like press, hold it and drag it. So you hold Z and then you drag to what you want. So material preview, rendered, wireframe, solid, right? So if you want to be in wireframe, you can select stuff now, right? We're in selection mode. If you are using other tools and you want to select box select, either use the button or B for box select. And again, I can select with this, then control and deselect, right? So it kind of works like that, right? So that's that basically. That's how you, there's a lot of other tools. So there's beveling, I showed inset, loop cuts, extrude. There's also polybuild, which is like, how does that even work? Ooh, okay, I haven't used polybuild to be honest. Let's not do that. But this is probably good for retopologizing. There's spin, smoothing, there's lots of cool stuff basically. If you want to slide a vertex around, wait, Waffle is typing something, so it must be good. Polybuild is, yeah, it's amazing for retopo. So if you want to retopologize a sculpt, Blender has that kind of functionality too, and it's really good. It got really good in 2.81, I think. They pushed an update for it, it's great. So let's say I want to move this vertex along this edge. Actually, let's first rotate this thing, right? So I can't use an axis to do that, right? It doesn't work. I want to move it along this line. So what do? I press G and then G again, which will activate loop slide. So I can just do that. So by default the behavior is clamped, so you can't overshoot. If you hold shift, wait, not shift, control, no. What was the button again for it? Alt? Oh yeah, Alt. If you hold Alt, you can overshoot, which is really cool. So let's say you want to, push it out along this edge, you can press Alt for that. That's great. Like that. Or I think it's, yeah, C just disables it. I don't have to hold anything down. So G is loop slide, vertex slide. It works on edges too, which is great. It works kind of on faces, I think, but it can be a bit janky, to be honest. Like that. So yeah, or that's really interesting. Yeah. So it's a bit, yeah, it's a bit janky, but it's like extruding sort of, but different. Yeah. So that's like the basic modeling stuff you'll be using most of the time. Like, I'll just press I to inset, E to extrude, maybe I to inset again, extrude. Maybe I'll go over here and extrude, rotate. Right, I'll make something like this. I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe some loop cuts here, right? So I can do something like this. I'm just doing random stuff, right? But you can do really cool stuff with this. You're already better than me after a week of Blender, so I think we're going going at a good pace. So yeah, that's the basic modeling tools, really. That's all you need to know. Maybe one extra thing is maybe if you want to split two vertices, like I want to detach this basically, V will kind of open it up, which is kind of nice. Which I'm gonna undo. Yeah, that's over here. Rip, and you have rip region or edge. So that's just that. One other thing which nobody is gonna know, sorry, from Max at least, is you can extrude individual vertices. So let's say I'm gonna delete this, right? I want to just sketch out something. I'm gonna Alt G. Let's say I just want to draw something, right? Let's get rid of all these other vertices, right? I have one vertex here. I can select it, E, and just click, and do all kinds of things, right? Ooh, not showing that yet. So now I have this, for example, right? I want to close this loop, maybe, right? I can select these two endpoints and press F for fill, and it's filled. But fill is more powerful than just connecting two vertices. If I select everything, I can press F and look, I have an n-gon there. So it's really fast to sketch out stuff if you know what you're doing. Like, it's very easy also to break stuff, like, in extruding vertices or having individual vertices as an object, you can kind of fuck up shit, but it's very strong, very powerful. Cult member, yes. So that's F. F is filling faces. Let's say I want to manually cut this polygon up into quads and triangles. I can select two vertices and press J to join them. Like this, right? I'll quickly do this. This is the manual way, right? There are also quicker ways, of course. So it'll do it like that. Don't use F for that. If you press F, you're actually creating additional edges. So I press F, right, and then this is a separate. You see, it's fucking up. It's not. It's separate geometry. So if you want to connect existing vertices, it's J for joining, and if it's for new geometry like these two, right, it's F. Like that. So maybe a quick thing, if you want to, let's say you want to just delete the face. Wait, this Shift Control E. I don't know what that is in Max. No. All right. So let's say I want to delete just the face, but not the edges I just created. I can press X and then delete only faces, and I'll still have the vertices, right? So that's kind of nice. And then someone asked, wait, check the questions. I have to watch some of this later. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff to take in, but it is like taking a lot of time. So An edge when two vertices are selected. Yeah, so but it's also the fill command. It'll fill in the distance between two vertices, or the space between two edges into a face, or multiple edges for a n-gon. It's like just, it's a jack of all trades. It's really powerful, and it's very quick as well. There's options to make it even quicker, but yeah. Having a single... Oh yeah, so it'll automatically do it as well. So I have this n-gon, this border, right? Oh yeah, there's no border select really in Blender. It's more like a loop select. I'll show that in a second. So if I have just this edge select and I press F, I just pressed F repeatedly and it just filled the n-gon up for me, which is really cool. I genuinely don't use it, but yeah. So one other thing, if I want to select a loop, I press Alt and then click. That's it. So I can fill this, for example. One other small thing that's kind of nice, like I have this whole n-gon. I don't want to be like pressing J constantly to like make you know, squads and triangles. Like, nah, I don't want to do that. I'll select everything, Control T to triangulate, and then Alt J to find where there are quads, and I'm done. There, kind of an extra thing. I'll go over these kinds of things in the next workshop again, because it's like more advanced. But that's, yeah, that's kind of like basic modeling stuff. Also, I have a mention somewhere. Oh, there. Oh, you can also just tap it. Hold it. That I want to see. All right, let's try that. Ooh. Yeah, that fixed all your n-gons exactly. So for game art, for example, you know what we did, where it's okay to have triangles, I just did Control T to triangulate and then Alt J to find all possible quads. Again, there are options for that as well. So if I do Control T, there are options, and then if I press Alt J, there are also options like max face angle, comparing UVs if you don't want it to bridge quads across a seam or something like that. There's all kind of stuff like that. So I should probably also quickly mention, wait, I'm gonna check what else I have on my... Oh yeah, so last thing we're gonna do now before you can just make, we're gonna do the exercise, a modeling exercise we came up with. I'll maybe also answer some questions first. So we're gonna extrude this whole thing up, right? You have this nice thing, but it's flat shading, right? How do I box select the back faces as well? In wireframe, I guess. I think there's an option to like have box select work through faces maybe, but I think just doing it in wireframe is probably best. Alt X. No, that's a thing in Max. Alt X. 'Cause it doesn't work. Alt Z. Alt Z. Oh no, that's GeForce Experience for me. I can't do that. All right. Well, you have a toggle here at the top. So in any mode, even in rendered mode, you can turn on. Wait, no, maybe not in rendered mode. Oh yeah. In rendered mode, you can display wireframe for the front and back face. So there's lots of options there. Alt Z works. Yeah, I have it remapped. So, anyways, so this is now flat shading, right? And like, oh, we kind of want nice, like smooth shading here. So we'll right click, shade smooth. It's a horrible mess. Oh god, what do we do? There's two things you can do. There's auto smoothing, which is basically the equivalent of automatically making smoothing groups based on angle limit, which we'll do first. We'll go to object data properties, the green triangle, then normals, auto smooth, and we can change this variable here, sorry, this value, and we have nice smooth shading where we want it, and we have nice crisp edges where we want it. So just go to your object data properties, the inverted green triangle thing, normals, you may have to scroll down a bit, auto smooth, and then just play with the angle until it looks good. So this is the automatic way, right? But it's not perfect because maybe sometimes you want to have more control. That's also an option. You can turn off auto smooth again, go into edit mode, go into edge mode, and you can select with alt, alt and shift. So shift is for multiple edges and alt is for loops. So if you do shift and alt, you can select multiple loops. right, like this. I can now press right click, I'll get my edge context menu, and then if you have it here, mark sharp. If you do that and go, oh wait, why does that not work? Oh wait, no, I think auto smooth has to be turned on for that, right? Okay, so auto smooth has to be on, but you have to you can just increase the angle to 180 and then mark sharp, and then the top as well. Select with Shift Alt, like this, mark sharp there, and we've done it manually. So there's two ways. You can also select everything and clear sharp, right? You can manually tell Blender this is a sharp edge, right? Or you can use auto smoothing and just mess with the angle limits to get something that you want. So the difference with Max is there is no such thing as a smoothing group. There's only a border between two smooth areas, which is a lot better actually. Basically, like you don't have to mess with, oh, is this on the same smoothing group or not? No, just put a sharp edge there and it's done, right? So it's a lot more artist friendly in that sense, but you do have a little bit less control, I guess. I don't know, but you know, it's a good trade-off in my opinion so far. Is everyone kind of on board with how auto smooth shading works? Yeah, the thing with the less control, don't even think there's less control, someone says. Like, I think, like, maybe it's like because you can't select smoothing groups, but then maybe that's probably an option for that, right? Like, you can select and then the limiting. Actually, yeah, isn't there? Yeah, if you do Control L, you can select linked, but then you have a pop-up, and you can even like limit it to be only. Oh wait, no. Oh, you don't have seams. Ah, stat. Well, okay. So Control L is select linked, by the way, which is kind of handy if you have like loose geometry or stuff. Yeah, not marked as sharp. So we'll do something cool. Let's say you want to unwrap this thing, or just have like, you know, our automatically have sharp edges for some reason, right? We can just go to select at the top here, and then let's see. There are lots of options, so I have to check. Oh yeah, select sharp edges right there. There. So we can then mess with the angle limit normally, which it's not. Oh, why is it not? That's odd. Let's try it again. Select sharp edges. Oh yeah, so we can now mess with the angle limit. Oh, I think you have to, yeah, like that. There you go. So I have to just increase this a bit more, right? So now we have selected all the sharp edges, mark sharp, and boom, right? And you can do the same for UV unwrapping as well. So we can just select sharp edges and then mark them as seams, and you have your UV seams basically. Well, of course there's some manual work to be done, but it gets you pretty far already. Maybe one last thing to kind of do. So Control C and Control V obviously works. So Control C, you can copy an object, and then Control V, and you have a duplicate, right? Same thing works in edit mode. You can duplicate, the entire mesh. Oh, wait. Copy face settings. No, okay, it doesn't work there. Yeah, so mark sharp edges as UV seams is going to be really handy. The quicker way to copy stuff at these objects is just Shift Duplicate. So Shift Duplicate is just their individual copies. If I change one, don't change the other, right? I can do all sorts of stuff. It's, they're all unique copies, basically, right? What I can also do is Alt-D. I just delete these three. Alt-D are like linked duplicates. So Alt-D, I do that. And this is really powerful, like, genuinely. If I click one of them, all of them will light up, but I can only edit one, right? And you can see now that I can edit one, and they all update. So that's with Alt-D. So Alt-D is linked duplicates, and regular Shift-D is just a unique copy. So I change one, the others, if I change this one, the others don't update, right? So this works in edit mode as well. Well, you can't make linked copies in edit mode, but what you can do is you can select the face and shift D it, for example, right? And you can also delete it, obviously. Ooh. Faces, like that. So there's lots of options there. You can also, with the delete option, there's lots of other things. So like, for example, only faces. So you'll be left with a wireframe. Like, these aren't faces, there's only edges and vertices, right? There's just other options too, right? You have dissolve, which is interesting, collapsing and stuff, like all that kind of stuff. But that's kind of it, I think. Let me check my notes. Yeah, basically. So this is like, explanation wise, it's everything. But we do have a small exercise if you guys want to follow along, like, oh, I made this, you know, have something at the end. But this is like, if you're good now, you can kind of go, technically. If you want to stick around and see what, I'll first show what we'll be making, and you can decide if you want to make it or not. Okay. So we'll be making this thing. It's the remote control block from Space Engineers. So this is like from the old version of the game. It's fairly basic, just a cube, right? You should kind of know already how to approach this, because you've seen it in Max. But now you can apply that knowledge from Blender, kind of, if you guys want to. I will put this in the workshop resources chat, so you guys can download it or have it on your own. And I'll just be making it with you guys. So let's post it here. Ooh, let's put that over there. Don't see my car. Alright, here we go. Okay, so that's the object you can make. Quick 5-minute break? Oh yeah, maybe that's a good idea. If you want to go pee or something. Also for everyone, like, if you have feedback, I know it was a bit fast today and a bit messy, admittedly, because I'm tired. How do you bridge stuff? F. Just use F. If you want to bridge, oh yeah, so you have just F if you want to do it one by one. But if you want to do like entire edge loops, there's a quicker way, and I'll show that real quick. I'll make 2 lines of vertices. Delete these 2. Right, so I have 2, like, right, like these 2, right? You want to bridge these 2. So Alt for both of them, Alt and Shift, right? And then you can just do F3 to search, and then bridge edge loops. So that's the faster way, basically. Then, what you can also do, of course, is do like F and then F, F, F. If you don't want to bother searching for stuff. Maybe a quick thing as well. Let me just Shift S to set my cursor to the origin. If I add a cube, right, and I have this, like, for example, I want to set the origin of my objects to something else super often. So what you can do is you can go well, set origin, right, and I can right click. Wait, no. Yeah. Wait. Ooh. So set origin, right, and I want this to have a shortcut, right, that I can use often. Like what I do often is origin to 3D cursor. I can right click on this thing and either assign a shortcut, check the manual, or add the quick favorites. So what is quick favorites? I don't actually know how to access it. It's not Q. Oh, it is Q, right. So we have quick favorites for edit mode, and you have quick favorites for object mode. So you can also remove it, right? And if I go to my quick favorites, it's empty. So you can add, if you search for something like, I don't know, something that doesn't have a button, like here, snap cursor to world origin. Well, there's Shift S, there's a pie menu for it, but let's say you want just this one. You can right click it. No, you can't. It's a bit inconsistent. Normally you should be able to, maybe like this. Yeah, no, alright. Some of them you can right click and add to quick favorites, some you can't. I don't know, it's a bit inconsistent, it's a bit odd. Yeah, so F3 has everything in there. Everything. As long as you know the name, at least, then you can find it again. So if you're following along with a tutorial and they say something weird, you're like, what the fuck is that? You can look it up in the search menu or online. The documentation is pretty damn good, I would say. It's by no means complete because it's just such a big piece of software. Like, yeah. But you can find most things there. It's not like with Houdini where it was a bit messy for us, you know, at our school when we learned it, but it's not quite as good as Unreal maybe either. There you go. It's also contextual, the search function, so yeah. That's kind of it modeling wise, like to give a glimpse of what we'll do next week. I should check my schedule for that. We're gonna go for modifiers, right? Like mirror modifier, array modifier, which is very exciting for Max users because they don't have it. Bevel, subdivision surface. Sorry. Talk about empties, what they're for. 3D cursor as well. And then some more intermediate modeling. We'll go over a included add-on that's not enabled by default, but we will because it's handy. Loop tools, parametric modeling, so just using a lot of modifiers, booleans, welding, auto merge, like some extra small bits that we kind of missed this time. Yeah. Oh, it's there again. The rigging. Tell me if it's over or not, because. Fuck. I need to fix it. Me and Waffle talked about this, so the ringing, for those who watch this again, I'm sorry. Just need to get a different headset maybe. Usually it's fine, right? But yeah. Alright. That's kind of it, really. So you want to go and not do the exercise or do it some other time? You're free to leave now. It's kind of over. But I'll be doing it on stream, just for those that kind of want to follow along. What about break? How long have you been taking a break? 5 minutes. I will do a bit longer. Any other quick questions I can kind of answer now? Or like things that were kind of like, oh, I don't get that. Wait, no, the break has been 5 minutes, Waffle. What are you talking about? It's been an hour. Let me see. There's some other stuff I missed from the cheat sheet, but like you can check in there, like local axis moving and stuff. But it's, you know, you can just try it out. Some of those things. Any other questions someone has? Like, oh, how does this work? Is it gonna be a nightmare to fucking put all the codes in, like the time codes? Like, oh, break plus very random questions I can't put anywhere else. How to delete edges? Shift backspace. No, not shift backspace. What? No. You just press X and you can click delete edge. So. Alright, yeah, thanks for coming, Nils. Glad you liked it. It's like saying goodbye to everyone. It's a bit messy today. I should have slept more. Yeah, let me see if there's anything else. I've gone over snapping, and like there's also smooth selection, so proportional editing, right? So if I enable it, right, I can kind of like drag stuff with me. You know, it's kind of delete. Oh, that's this dissolving basically. So if I have an edge, right, like this, and I select the loop, I press X and then dissolve edges. Or Control X. Is that also? Oh wow, Control X is a shortcut. There you go. For dissolving, you can just. I do feel like it's sometimes a bit. It can be kind of janky. Like it can work in an unexpected way. Like, oh, I wanted something different. So, but you can Control Z it. So it's not like. Keep pressing Control S to save. Yes, that's dissolving basically. It's what we call it in Blender, not deleting. Because deleting would be, you know, like actual, like it's gone, right? We'll keep the vertices though. But yeah. Yeah. So you can also like. Should I go for remove doubles? Nah, that's for next week. Let's not worry about that now. Well, I have some time now. I don't know. I've had some. You say it's not unpredictable, but I've had like weird things happen. Enough info already, I think. All right, so we'll start on the thingy. All right, I'm gonna open it up on my left screen so I can see. Oh, that's my right screen. So I can see what I'm doing. We're not gonna do the back, even though I don't think it's that complex. But let's just do the front, right? Also, let's not worry about n-gons because why, right? We can just press Control T and Alt J. This is a low poly thing. We're not worried about flow even at this point. Just kind of modeling a shape for now, right? That's all. So let's see. Well, I'm gonna drag it in here first to kind of just see. So well, it's a cube obviously, with a big bevel on the front. There's this cutout in the middle. We might model this interior thing as well. We'll see. There's this triangular cutout that's maybe like done with a knife tool. There's a bevel around everything at the end. So we'll first model this in. This kind of has a like a triangular shape, I guess. Well, no, it's like we'll see. All right. So all right, let's start with this. So we're kind of seeing as well that this area and the one at the top is kind of similar. So let's just. Oh wait, can I open? Oh, yeah. Another small thing I'll show because that's really cool. You can drag images into your scene, and it'll just pop up. So I have this here, right? I can just go pop, and it's in there. And I can Alt R to reset the rotation, right? So it's in there. It's not an actual object. There's no geometry to it. There's other ways of getting images in Blender that it does have geometry, but we're not focusing on that now, right? I'm just gonna move this so I see it like that, so I just kind of see what I'm doing, right? So I want to model this, right? So we'll get a cube. Let's do this big bevel at the front first. It seems like it's like, we'll see how much, but just like kind of, because we can just eyeball it, right? So something like that maybe. All right, let's do Control R, put this in, and then something neat, right? You want to have kind of two loops going this way. We can select a loop and then go Control B and just do this, right? So we just beveled a loop into two more loops, and I can press scroll wheel to add the center point. I don't need it. I'm just gonna do something like that. Looks good to me. All right. One more thing we need. This line on the top as well. We'll just add that. We're creating n-gons, but we don't care, right? We're just gonna do it like this. All right. We need another one. We need two more here technically, but we're gonna do it a bit differently, maybe. No, we'll just add two more loops. Like that. And then we can press these two. S. Oh, I have proportional editing on. Whoops. S and X. Like something like that. Maybe move these two loops up maybe a bit, or not. I don't know. I think this is kind of, it's not accurate, but I'm not really caring about that right now. Like this. Again, we're creating n-gons, but we don't care. We generally don't care. GX. I'm gonna move this with the numpad a bit. GX negative 0.05. Just kind of doing this. This is very speed. Yeah, you're not supposed to follow along with me. I'm just kind of doing it on my own, and you can kind of see. Oh, one small thing I forgot totally. So let's say you want to select with Shift all of these polygons. That's taking a long time, right? It's kind of boring. If you press one of them and then hold Control and click this one, it'll pick the shortest path between the two. So click, Control, click. You have to hold Control down. It'll just do that. Shift is for just regular selections. Alt is for loops. It's sometimes a bit finicky. Like I want that loop, not the other one, but so yeah, Control, click, click, Control, hold Control, and click again. You can do that kind of stuff. It's really cool. So we'll just do that. I'm gonna just extrude this inwards. It's not exactly accurate, but I don't care. That's a bit wrong. Let's move that. I'm not really going for accuracy here, just the general idea of it, you know, learning the tools. I'm not going to do the center bit, I think. Or am I? I kind of should, shouldn't I? We'll do it in a sec, not now. Then we almost have the overall shape. Let's first do this big like bevel, right? So we'll do Alt, select all these loops, and then sometimes Shift just to get the ones we need. And we can just bevel this. So Control B, and that looks about okay. It's a bit too big, but actually, yeah, I'm gonna redo that. Control B, something I guess. Yeah, that looks nice. All right. Let's do the centerpiece. I don't know what this is exactly, but I'm just gonna assume it's maybe. Well, first model this in maybe. Yeah. So Control click, right? Just go E, and then S. Ooh, proportional editing on again. Shit. Like that. E and S. There. It's not looking like it at all, but I can maybe move this up a bit. That should help. And then we should maybe delete this, or we can add some. We're not going for a clean result here, clearly. There's all sorts of snapping tools you can use to make sure like this is at the same height. But it's more of a complex thing, so we're not doing that today. I can go into a side view and wireframe to kind of maybe check. It's looking okay, right? Something like this. I mean, yeah, it's kind of looking okay. It's a bit fat still, but I mean, oh, I keep trying to save. All right, this last bit here, that's quite easy. You can just Control click these ones, inset with I, and then just extrude inwards, S, and we're done, kind of. Basically, you can maybe put on smooth shading, right? Auto smooth, smooth shaded as well, right? So we get, if I turn it, you see how, you're not seeing it really, but like this is being smoothed very slightly. Okay, that's maybe a bit much actually. There. Like you see it here, right? This is smoothed, this top edge. I think that's, yeah, that's honestly it. Oh wait, yeah, this thing. This cutout. Really easy, just use knife tool. We can use the inside view even. I'm not going to do the other side because we're going to see a mirror thing anyway, so I can put a loop cut here in the middle actually, and then just box select with B or with the tool, right? Delete vertices, right? I need to make only 1/2, but no, we haven't seen modifiers yet, so yeah, so then you can just go over here, knife tool, cut this detail in, press enter, then 3 for this. Let's see how this looks. Oh wait, no, I'm doing it wrong. Alright, knife tool, we can click, then press C to turn on angle clamp. It'll snap to 45-degree increments. Then click, press C again to disable, and just kind of eyeball it, and it auto connects to itself. And it'll even make connections for us to kind of avoid weird n-gons, which is great. And we can just do I, and then GX, and we're done. Now we can just select everything, Control T, Alt J, and this doesn't have any n-gons. That's it. So again, to get rid of n-gons, we go for select everything, Control T for triangulate, Alt J for quadrify. Basically, it's not all quads; it still has triangles, but that's it, really. Yeah. So if I was too fast, which I was, that's okay. You just kind of need to figure it out on yourself. Like try and just see. Hopefully you can follow along with kind of the workflow, but then figuring out what to do. Also, sadly, the shortcuts here, they disappear a bit too quickly. I need to get a different screencasting add-on because this one sucks. So for next lesson, right, we can use modifiers, which is really nice. You can just model one side and it updates, right? You can change the axis. There's all kinds of options here. But that's really it. We're kind of done with it. No, that's it. Any questions or like, oh, that was really quick, how did you do that? I can just redo it. It's really quiet, that's worrying. Alright, yeah, bye. Also, the good thing about a live stream is you can just look at it again and slow it down a bit. It's a bit fast, I'm aware of that, but yeah, so we can just get rid of n-gons really easily. It's kind of a complex thing, but the general workflow, although this depends on how you want to do it, is you don't really worry about n-gons until you need to worry about n-gons. So for low poly modeling, it's like just, you know, triangulate or whatever at the end, unless again you're working with curves or something. But yeah. So use Discord. Yeah, I was trying to like so like, well, I'm not doing it now, but whatever. Okay, so it might be a bit confusing for people who weren't here, so they can't really follow along with chat since we use Discord. That's true. I tried to read questions that people asked, so, but yeah, I will try and do that better next time. I'm used to doing this in real life, so then it's like everyone hears it, of course. Yeah, but I will try to do that next time as well. So I barely scratched the surface here. Basically, it's what it kind of boils down to. Like everything here seems complex already, but it's like there's a lot more. But that's good. It's good that there's a lot more complexity-wise, and there's a lot of options. Like this header bar alone has like view and select options. Adding, you can add with Shift A or with this button, right? Or object settings. You know, all these tabs on the right. There's a lot of stuff. And we're just talking about modeling, right? Like if we're talking about other workspaces, right? Like sculpting and texture painting or animation, you know, that's why you have different workshops because it's a lot. Yeah, so it's quite interesting. So main reason for you to switch is because it's free, right? For post DA and also for animation and sculpting. That's nice. But I'm a Blender fanboy through and through, right? But it's not obviously not the best at everything. I feel like it's the best modeling program out there, by far. But for animation, for example, Maya has more features. It just had more of a focus on that. It's been around longer with more money, so it's more powerful for animation for sure. And sculpting, similarly, ZBrush is just better at it. It's more complex though. Like I've heard people be a bit more confused about ZBrush than Max, but it's a trade-off, right? It's just really good for it. Blender is getting better, but yeah. So I have a question about smoothing. After I have chosen the sharp edges manually, the blue lines remain. Is there a way to hide them? Yes. So well, I'll first select some and just kind of select some sharp edges. I'll mark sharp, right? So they're still there. That's kind of annoying. You can just go to your options here, and then here. So mesh edit mode, sharp. Just disable that. So that's that kind of stuff. So you can customize your viewport a lot, right? Yeah. Alright, yeah, no problem. There's plenty of other options. If you want to just disable everything, right? Like you just want to have a clean view. If you're taking a screenshot, you can click this icon here. That's quite nice. You can disable things separately. You can force wireframe on in any viewport, which is quite cool. Will this be weekly? I don't know yet. We're gonna make a poll, basically. But I would assume weekly, maybe once every 2 weeks. Like, I don't know. Like if people want to have more than one workshop a week, I can maybe do that, right? But because it's just like we have 8 workshops planned already, so if you do them once a week, that's gonna take the entire summer vacation basically. Well, yeah, pretty much the entire summer vacation. So, well, technically not because we start in September, but you get what I mean, right? Up till August, it would take that long if it's every week. But you know, generally, uh, we might skip a week. Oh, it's supposed to have an optional second one. Yeah, I mean, purely like feedback. Yeah, we have feedback through text, of course, and so we have for people still here, because it was a bit not a bit vague for some people. So you have a whole section at the bottom on the Discord server called Blender Questions. Now we renamed it. Has all the different like channels. That's basically where to post questions about specific things. Like I have an issue with this. Like what's the thing I think I can think of? Oh, I'm trying to rig a character, but this or this is not working. You go to the animation rigging channel and you ask your question, and we try to help you. Or you're trying to tackle something, like for example this image right here. Like, oh, I want to model this. I don't know how. Well, this is maybe a bit basic, but you know, as an example, right? How do I do this? Or like, oh, I saw this on ArtStation. It looks really cool. He used Blender, because then you know, like as an example, so you know it can be done in Blender. How would I do this in Blender, right? Or you're working with grease pencil, for example. Like, oh, I've seen some tutorials. How do I convert my grease pencil stuff to meshes? Like, if you've seen some of the posts in the web feedback, Lino Lonely Pony has been doing some really cool stuff with like grease pencil and stuff, where you can, like, it's really cool. Grease pencil is amazing. I can't wait to dive deeper into it, because I think it's, besides Eevee, it's the best thing for 2.8 ever that came out since Blender is a thing, has been a thing. Like, just being able to draw in 3D or over 3D models, or convert 2D strokes into 3D geometry, it's awesome in my opinion. Oh, the UI. Okay, yeah, the UI, Eevee, and then also grease pencil. But yeah, so it's honestly great what people have been able to do with it. UI overhaul was a bit necessary. Yes, you have a point in that. I would not want to go back ever. It looks nicer. It's just, you know. But yeah, so for me personally, Eevee was, like, I haven't used grease pencil much. So for me personally, Eevee was one of the nicest things, because it allowed me to actually work at a reasonable pace. I don't like waiting for a path traced image, although that has also gotten better as of late, because we now have viewport denoising and post-processing denoising, which makes everything a lot faster while not really sacrificing quality. So Eevee is just great. I'm gonna show an example. If you want to go now, you can go. It's like, that's kind of it. But I go to, what do I have here? I may need to go to my school assignment stuff. Let's see. Blender files. Whip 20x, or this one maybe. Let's see. All right. So let's see what rendering engine. I'll go to Eevee first, right? And it takes a minute to run. Okay, there we go. It's compiling my shaders, but I can already look around. Alright, so this is Eevee, real time, with materials and everything, lighting. What car is this? It's a Citroen CX. I made it for my exam for high poly. It's something I worked on. So these lights are real time. I can move this I can do everything. Can move lights around. I can hide stuff, right? Hide stuff. So, oh, not this. I don't need this. All right. So yeah, I use collections to sort lights. Right. So I have different lighting setups. So this is an Eevee, right? This is real time. If you look at this, this looks okay, right? I wouldn't say this is amazing. This is not much setup either. This is kind of just lights and the default settings. I added some extra stuff. It's like a game engine, right? So you have screen space reflections and ambient occlusion, you know that. So this is great for materials, right? If I want to live edit the material, I can just drag open the material editor. Where is it? Shader, right? It's called shader. And I can be like, you know what? I don't like how shiny this is. It's like too perfect. Roughness. Oh, it's perfectly matte now. Done. Right? I can just dynamically change this. And it also works with Control Z, luckily. Or I want it to be metal. Now we wait for a sec. Now it's metal. There. So that's really cool. That's just in Eevee, right? Because recently we got oh yeah, so Eevee to cycles, as Waffle says, is it matches pretty well 1-to-1. Pardon me, not perfectly. I've had like kind of differences, but it matches pretty well. So yeah, Eevee is also great for when you're doing compositing work, like you're compositing CGI footage onto real life stuff. Then being able to match your lighting and stuff is great. All right, enjoy your dinner, and thanks for coming. I'm going to show off a bit of Blender a bit more because you're curious. So one last thing is we now have viewport denoising. So if I switch to cycles, I already have it turned on. So I don't have it right now. You can tell it's probably going to look horrible on the stream, but it's very noisy and it takes a while to kind of get good, right? Like it takes 20 samples or something. Actually, I'll just put it on 2, right? So you see this is 2 samples. It's like, this is workable, like it's fast. I have an RTX card. Blender uses RTX scores, like the what's it called? Whatever. The special AI stuff, whatever it's called. It uses those for faster rendering. It's not super much faster than just like using your regular cards, but it is faster, so that's nice. So now I'm gonna turn on viewport denoising, and 2 samples, and we have this. Like, is it perfect? No, there's a lot of artifacting. Like if I switch my lights real quick, you can see there's a lot of artifacting. But it's gotten better though. Like we have some other, like we just in 2.9 I think, or 2.83.2, we just got some extra stuff. But for, you know, look dev, or just like getting a rough like vision of what it's gonna look like, I put it on 10, right? Like, I mean, these things kind of just persists with optics AI denoising. It's kind of just like how it works, because it's, you know, it's AI based. But I can go quite a bit higher, and it will kind of, yeah, it's kind of starting to get clearer. The compression is probably gonna fuck it up anyways. But like if you look at this, right, like imagine working on these headlights here in look dev mode. Like you can, again, this is a bit messy, so it's kind of like I prefer working in Eevee, which looks like this. This is the look dev mode is always in Eevee, so it's always real time. There's no lighting. I've said the F word like 7 times or something already, I think. But yeah, so it's really cool to work with. You can also just turn it off if you don't want it, because it does make everything a bit more painterly. But this is like, you know, like imagine having to render without denoising. You know, that would be a pain. But yeah, so this is kind of cycles. There's also workbench, which is basically your viewport view. You can use that for like play blasts for animation, right? And there's some extra rendering settings and stuff. I'll put it back to Eevee for now. And also, what the cool thing is about this is you can overlay stuff on top of your rendering, right? So here you can see all my lights and my cameras I have, but I can also overlay wireframe. You can force wireframe on in real time in my real-time engine or in my path trace engine, so I can just have it on top of that. Or face orientation, which is for like normals, or in edit mode even. I can actually, another cool thing. Yeah, I'm gonna show that real quick. So in Blender, you can model by selecting multiple objects at once. So you can just go, like, I'm gonna select all of these things, right? And I can do tab, and now I'm selecting geometry on multiple objects, right? So this is an object, this is, and I can select both of them and model in both of them at once. This is also for rigs, so if you're like doing a scene with two characters that have to interact, like maybe they shake hands or something, you can be animating with both rigs at once. So you don't have to swap or anything. It's a 2.8 thing, it's new. So it's great. I've spent many nights rendering stuff out pre 2.8. Yeah, same. I think actually, if I quickly grab it, I'm gonna just clone window. Alright. My first ever like big project was this thing in 2013. This took 5,000 samples to render, and I think like 10 hours or something, and it still looks super noisy. So yeah, it's gotten a lot better than this since then. A lot better. So optics AI denoising helps a lot. You have two kinds of denoising. You have optics that you can use, which is purely which you have to enable in render settings, and you also have open image denoise, which is a compositing thing. So there's lots of options to kind of speed up stuff. Also, if you're using cycles, you can use your GPU or your CPU or both. There's lots of settings you can do. So yeah, I had the exact same thing. I like someone says, oh, I had a mistake in my render, I had to re-render. I had that too, and it wasn't nice. If actually I can probably find it. Can you look here? This blinker wasn't on the other side, so I had to re-render this whole thing. If I flick back and forth, which I can't, okay. Yeah, so if you check this area, right here, isn't there, here it is. I was so annoyed by that. But yeah, that's the nice thing. For example, also, like, I know that Arnold in Max, it supports GPU rendering, but then it doesn't support bump maps. Blender does, obviously. So yeah, it's those kinds of things that kind of make me like Blender more. I know it's more like an Arnold thing, which is sad because it's their proprietary engine, but yeah. Also, I'm gonna if there aren't any further like Blender related questions, I'm gonna stop the stream, but we can still talk if you want, but just like so we don't bloat it. So any other questions, or like, oh, can Blender do this, or is there something cool, like I'll talk about that gladly a bit. Or something technical from the what we saw already, like how can I, like someone asked earlier, how can I bridge two loops, that kind of stuff. Like if there's some quick stuff I can talk about now, I'll do that. But can it do this, you ask? Yes, probably. Blender is really interesting software because it's open source, so people make really cool stuff for it. I mean, you say you're very inexperienced with 3D modeling and stuff. Like, we all start somewhere, right? Like, again, the thing I first made is just like, what the fuck? It's very, very bad. I can maybe find something else I made. I don't have it on me, probably. Oh, wait, I do. Let me see. Renders. Oh, this is the first thing I made ever in Blender. Like, you look like, oh yeah, these are like, cylinders, separate primitives, toruses, tori, subdivision surface on this thing, it's super horrible because of how it's capped off, and like, oh, a sphere, and more donuts in a cylinder, like, it's um, we all have to start somewhere. Also, it's like with cycles had just come out, I think. This is in 2.76, I'm not sure. So yeah, we all start somewhere. And nowadays, cause I haven't really shown my stuff before, I think, because I generally try not to. I do stuff like, let me see here. What's a good one? Well, this is more like rendering stuff for me nowadays, but I do stuff like this. Right, this is an Eevee. Takes 20 seconds to render or something, I think. It's just with game assets, kind of cool stuff, right? Or like this, right? Like Eevee is really cool. 20 seconds, yeah. So it's actually, I can just show you what that looks like. If I open, don't save, yeah. If I go to my scenes folder, SFM, let's see. Ooh, which one? This one? No. I think it might be this one. Oh yeah, volumetrics are also insanely fast. Also, I'm gonna stop the stream actually. Now think about it, because I think we're good here. All right, thank you all for coming, and for anyone that's watching this after the fact, thank you for watching the whole thing, or at least being here at the end. Yeah, have fun, you guys, with Blender, and I'll see you next week. Bye, stream.